The best movies to watch on a rainy day and to make you laugh. And put you in a good mood. Amazon Women on the Moon is a 1987 American satirical science fiction sketch comedy film that parodies the experience of watching low-budget films on late-night television. The film, featuring a large ensemble cast with cameo appearances by film and television stars as well as some non-actors, was written by Michael Berry and Jim Mulholland and takes the form of a compilation of 21 comedy sketches directed by 5 different directors: Joe Dante, Carl Gottlieb, Peter Horton, John Landis, and Robert K. Weiss. The title Amazon Women on the Moon refers to the central film within a film, a spoof of science fiction films from the 1950s that borrows heavily from Queen of Outer Space, 1958, starring Zsa Zsa Gabor, itself a film that recycles elements of earlier science fiction works such as Catwomen of the Moon, 1953, Fire Maidens from Outer Space, 1955, and Forbidden Planet, 1956. Landis had previously directed the Kentucky Fried Movie, 1977, which employed a similar sketch anthology format.
Caddyshack is a 1980 American sports comedy film directed by Harold Ramis, written by Brian Doyle Murray, Ramis and Douglas Kenney, and starring Chevy Chase, Rodney Dangerfield, Ted Knight, his final film role, Michael O'Keefe and Bill Murray, with supporting roles by Sarah Holcomb, Cindy Morgan, and Brian Doyle Murray. It tells the story of a caddy, vying for a caddy scholarship, who becomes involved in a feud on the links between one of the country club's founders and a nouveau riche guest. A subplot involves a greenskeeper who uses extreme methods against an elusive gopher. Caddyshack was the directorial debut of Ramis, and the film boosted the career of Dangerfield, who was then known primarily as a stand-up comedian. Grossing nearly $40 million at the domestic box office, the 17th highest of the year, it was the first of a series of similar slob versus snob comedies. The film has a cult following and was described by ESPN as perhaps the funniest sports movie ever made. A sequel titled Caddyshack 2, 1988, followed. Although only Chase reprised his role, it was panned by critics and a box office bomb. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a 1982 American coming-of-age comedy film directed by Amy Heckerling in her feature directorial debut. Its screenplay was written by Cameron Crowe, based on his 1981 book Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a true story, and it starred Sean Penn, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Judge Reinhold, Phoebe Cates, Brian Backer, Robert Romanus, and Ray Walston. Crowe went undercover as a student at Claremont High School in San Diego and wrote about his experiences. The film chronicles a school year in the lives of underclassmen Stacy Hamilton and Mark Ratner, and their older friends Linda Barrett and Mike Damone, both of whom believe themselves wiser in the ways of romance than their younger counterparts. The ensemble cast of characters form 2 subplots, with Jeff Spicoli, a perpetually stoned surfer facing off against history teacher Mr. Hand, and Stacy's older brother Brad, a popular senior who works in entry-level jobs to pay for his car and ponders ending his 2-year relationship with his girlfriend Lisa. In addition to Penn, Reinhold, Cates and Lee, the film marks early appearances by several actors who later became stars, including Nicolas Cage, Eric Stoltz, Forrest Whitaker, and Anthony Edwards, the first 2 in their feature film debuts.
History of the World, Part 1 is a 1981 American comedy film written, produced, and directed by Mel Brooks. Brooks also stars in the film, playing 5 roles: Moses, Comicus the stand-up philosopher, Tomás de Torquemada, King Louis XVI, and Jacques, Le Garçon de Pisse. The large ensemble cast also features Sid Caesar, Shecky Greene, Gregory Hines, in his film debut, Charlie Collis, and Brooks regulars Ron Carey, Dom DeLucy, Madeline Kahn, Harvey Korman, Cloris Leachman, Andreas Voutsinas, and Spike Milligan. The film also has cameo appearances by Royce D. Applegate, B. Arthur, Nigel Hawthorne, Hugh Hefner, John Hurt, Phil Leeds, Barry Levinson, Jackie Mason, Paul Mazur-Sky, Andrew Sachs, and Henny Youngman, among others. Orson Welles narrates each story. Despite carrying the numeration Part 1, there were originally no plans for a sequel. The title is a play on the history of the world by Sir Walter Raleigh, which was intended to be published in several volumes, but only the first was completed because Raleigh was arrested and executed in 1618. However, 4 decades later, Hulu announced the miniseries History of the World, Part 2, which premiered on March 6, 2023. The Kentucky Fried Movie is a 1977 American independent black comedy sketch film, produced by Kim Jorgensen, Larry Kostroff, and Robert K. Weiss, and directed by John Landis. Among the numerous star cameos are George Lazenby, Bill Bixby, Henry Gibson, Barry Dennen, Donald Sutherland, Tony Dow, Stephen Bishop, and the voice of Shadoe Stevens. According to writer David Zucker on the DVD commentary track, David Letterman auditioned for the role of the newscaster, but was not selected. The film also features many former members of the Groundlings and the Second City. The feature presentation portion of the film stars Evan C. Kim and Hapkido Grand Master Bong Soo-han. The Kentucky Fried Movie launched the careers of the Zucker brothers, Abrahams and Landis. Landis was recommended to direct National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978 based on his work with the Kentucky Fried Movie. The film's writers were the team of David Zucker, Jim Abrahams and Jerry Zucker. All three were from Madison, Wisconsin, who subsequently wrote and directed Airplane, Top Secret, and The Police Squad television series and its film spin-offs, the Naked Gun films. Monty Python's Life of Brian is a 1979 British surreal biblical black comedy film starring and written by the comedy group Monty Python. Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle, Terry Jones, and Michael Palin. It was directed by Jones. The film tells the story of Brian Cohen, played by Chapman, a young Judean man who is born on the same day as, and next door to, Jesus, and is subsequently mistaken for the Messiah. Following the withdrawal of funding by EMI Films just days before production was scheduled to begin, musician and former Beatle George Harrison and his business partner Dennis O'Brien arranged financing for Life of Brian through the formation of their Handmade Films company. The film's themes of religious satire were controversial at the time of its release, drawing accusations of blasphemy and protests from some religious groups. In the United Kingdom, the film was given an AA-14 rating by the British Board of Film Classification, though 11 local councils outright banned the film, while a further 28 raised the rating from AA to X across their jurisdictions. This certificate would later be amended from AA to 15 in 1988, and from 15 to 12A in 2019. Some countries, including Ireland and Norway, banned its showing, and, in a few of these, such as Italy, bans lasted over a decade. The filmmakers used the notoriety to promote the film, with posters in Sweden reading, "So funny it was banned in Norway." The film was a box office success. It was the fourth highest-grossing film in the United Kingdom in 1979, and the highest grossing of any British film in the United States that year. It has remained popular and has been named as the greatest comedy film of all time by several magazines and television networks, and it later received a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes with a consensus reading. One of the more cutting-edge films of the 1970s, this religious farce from the classic comedy troupe is as poignant as it is funny and satirical. In a 2006 Channel 4 poll, Life of Brian was ranked first on their list of the 50 greatest comedy films. Spaceballs is a 1987 American space opera parody film co-written, produced and directed by Mel Brooks. It primarily parodies the original Star Wars trilogy, but also other popular franchises such as Star Trek, Alien, The Wizard of Oz, 2001, A Space Odyssey, Planet of the Apes, and Transformers. The film stars Bill Pullman, John Candy, Rick Moranis, and Daphne Zuniga, with a supporting cast including Dick Van Patten, George Weiner, Laureen Yarnell, and the voice of Joan Rivers. In addition to Brooks playing a dual role, the film features Brooks regulars Dom DeLuise and Rudy DeLuca in cameo appearances. In Spaceballs, heroic mercenary Lone Star played by Pullman and his alien sidekick Barf played by Candy Rescue Princess Vespa played by Zuniga of the planet Druidia and her droid. Matrix, Yarnell, voiced by Rivers, from being captured by the Spaceballs, led by President Scroob, played by Brooks, who wants to use Vespa as ransom to obtain Druidia's heir for their own planet. However, the heroes get stranded on a desert moon, where they encounter the wise Yogurt, also played by Brooks, who teaches Star about the metaphysical power known as the Schwartz. Meanwhile, Spaceball commanders Dark Helmet, Moranis, and Colonel Sanders, Weiner, lead the search for them, but are hindered by their own incompetence. The film was released by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, on June 24, 1987. A sequel is in the early stages of development as of June 2025. Directed by Josh Greenbaum and co-written by Josh Gad and Brooks, the sequel will star Lewis Pullman, Keke Palmer, and Gad, with Brooks, Bill Pullman, Moranis, and Zuniga reprising their roles. The sequel has an anticipated theatrical release by MGM in 2027.
Strange Brew, also known as The Adventures of Bob and Doug McKenzie, Strange Brew, is a 1983 Canadian-American comedy film starring the popular SCTV characters Bob and Doug McKenzie, portrayed by Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis, who also served as co-directors. Co-stars include Max von Sydow, Paul Dooley, Lynn Griffin, Brian McConaughey, and Angus MacInnes. Famed Warner Brothers cartoon voice artist, also the vocal effects for MGM's Tom and Jerry, Mel Blanc performs off-screen as the Mackenzie brothers' cantankerous father. Loosely based on elements of Shakespeare's Hamlet, most of the film was shot in Toronto and Scarborough. Parts were also filmed in Prince George, British Columbia. The film received mixed reviews from the critics upon release, but was modestly successful commercially and in the years since it has achieved a cult following. There you have it. My list of just a few comedies for my friend Julia to share with her college friends. Next will be my list of music documentaries followed by suspenseful movies like The Sixth Sense. If you like this list, please share it with friends, give it a like, leave a comment and please subscribe. Thanks for watching.